Good afternoon and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. Uh, Today we are going to be looking at the Two of Wands. And I don't know if you will have noticed, but I updated my countdown. I felt like 30 seconds wasn't quite long enough. And so I made it a little longer. Let me know what you think about that. If it gave you plenty of time to find out about the live and hop online or not. Yeah, and I think that's technically what this card basically boils down to is being constructively dissatisfied. As always, I'd like to share what's been going on with me before we get started today. I did actually finish this piece this week, and I immediately thought, okay, do I want to do it over, or do I want to just try to add more color to it? Because I have never worked with this medium before. This is the first time I've ever worked with pastels. And I've been trying a lot of new mediums recently to see if I can get the look and the feel that I want in my art. I tried watercolors. I couldn't. I just couldn't. No, it didn't work. No matter how many videos I watched, I just couldn't seem to get the hang of that. So I decided to try pastels. I'm pretty happy with it, though. Generally, I kind of get in this headspace where I okay, let me do a little bit more and a little bit more until I ruin it. And I'll talk more about this week with my guest today on her channel Tuesday. I'm so excited to have with me Ange from Tiny Trinkets and Tarot.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hey, Rosemary. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you could be with me today. Um, I understand that you actually had an interesting experience with the Two of Wands when you started your channel. Would you like to share that with
Yes.
us before we jump into
Sure.
some of our favorites?
Yes. So, for those that may be here or watching back that don't know, I started my channel back in January of 2021, and it was a long time coming because, kind of like the Two of Wands can represent the hesitation and the, like you said, dissatisfaction and on of like hesitation. Do I do it? Am I good enough? All this crap. And anyway, at the end of my very first video that I did, if you go on to my channel, I pulled a card at the end to represent what this channel may bring for me. And I used the This May Hurt tarot, and this is the Two of Wands depicted in that deck. And as you can see, this individual is sitting on the hood of a car with a map overlooking the landscape. And if you look in the traditional Two of Wands, you can see approximately the same landscape. So you got some mountainous range, you got some lush sort of green areas. And I thought it was perfect because, here I am like, okay, like, here's my inspiration and my goal and my desire. Like what's it going to be and who am I going to meet along the way to help me on this journey and everything like that. So it was pretty fitting for the first card pull for a new channel.
Awesome. Awesome. And so do you have some favorite cards that you want to share with us today? I like to
Sure.
start with this so we can actually see all of the ideas that everybody has brought to the decks. And before we actually get into the traditional symbols and meaning of the card.
Yeah, that sounds good. So the first two I'm going to show really do they represent the traditional in a sense of RWS. This one here is from the Astro Matrix Tarot, and you can see again like this is the um, similar imagery. But what I wanted to point out was this eagle that's flying above. I thought that was a nice touch for me. That would represent like spirit and like allowing that to also be a guide along your way. And the other one I want to show you was the Glitter Winter Wait by Tarot Collectibles. And they have included this little pigeon down here, but they've also included these birds above. And so I'm like, okay, so as above, so below kind of thing. I know that's not the Two of Wands, that's a magician, but I just kind of liked how they added that in there. The only thing I don't like about this card is there's no growth on the wands. And for me, that's important because um, that's a huge piece of symbolism in this card because it's sort of the growth that's sort of starting to take place after that spark of the ace, right? So I understand it's a winter scene and there's maybe not supposed to be growth, but really it should be there. But that's my only complaint about that card. Um,
I didn't really pull any Smith weight based ones, though I have a couple that are similar. Like, for example, the Uncommon Tarot,
yeah.
which is technically a collage deck. This is one that is weird. I don't individually really love any of the cards in it, but it reads fantastic for me when I pull it out. It's interesting that he chose a young person in the two,
Hmm.
which is kind of draws on this idea that I have been trying to struggle with a little bit. In Waite's book and in 78 Degrees of Wisdom, they relate the cards going from 10 down to 1 versus 1 up to 10. And so this kind of gives me the idea that this is the beginning rather than the end, though the
Mm,
way Waite and Rachel Pollack tell the story in their books, this would be the card right before your success.
yes.
Basically, the reverse of how most of us actually have learned the tarot. So I kind of like that this was a child, meaning that it's near the beginning. This
Hmm.
one also was a child, which is basically she's looking into like a crystal ball at the future, I guess, as she swings. This is the Curious Travels. So I
I
kind of
love
like
that one.
that youthful energy in the early numbers of the cards.
Yes, absolutely.
You know. And the other thing that came up a couple of times in decks for me was education. And in the Numinous Tarot, it comes up, and
Mm,
the crutches are actually the wands there, but they're discussing the book. And there's this idea sometimes in this card that the person is waiting on someone, or maybe they need input from someone else in order to expand beyond where they're at.
yes.
And so you get that idea of education in this deck as well, which is the Goblin Tarot. This deck, the wands are actually associated with wizards, so it's all about these goblins in a wizard school.
I love that knowledge piece. It's so important because, you know, it also represents um, in the Two of Wands phase, you can be so excited about this new idea, this whatever you're about to do, that you can maybe just jump into it without doing the proper homework, without doing the proper study. And so having that knowledge and taking that time to really be discerning is important, I think.
Yeah. And actually, that's what Benabel Wynn called hers, which we'll come back to this card near the end of the broadcast, but she called it the discerning one,
Hmm.
bringing in that very idea that you're talking about. So, what
Yeah.
other cards did you find that you really enjoyed or had ideas you wanted to share?
Yeah, I forgot to mention one thing about my card, whether this might hurt. So when I pulled this and I sat with it for a minute for my channel, I realized that the Two of Wands for me reminded me of the "Oh, the Places You'll Go" by Dr. Seuss. So now, anytime I pull the Two of Wands, I just think that because it's like it's that potential, and it's like, oh, you know, what could happen, like what could be. These two here. This is from the Lily Black tarot, and I just love there's a lily white, yay. And I just love that like portal that you're looking through, you know, to see where you're headed. And this one here is from the Way Home tarot, and it's two sticks being rubbed together and you can see the smoke. So I view this as like the spark behind is from the spark of the Ace of Wands, and then if you rub these two together, and then you can see the smoke, which is the potential to start that fire, to start um, your journey. Um, do I have any more? So I have this one is from the Old World Tarot. This is from Make Playing Cards, and I just thought it was a little bit of a different take. It's more modernized, of course, with this baseball player kind of looking out into the world there. And this one is from Tarot of Mystical Moments. And you can see she's sitting on the house with the world in her hands, looking out, and you know, sitting on the house, being this is her comfort zone, and she's sort of contemplating on where the journey might take her.
So that's a thing that I can totally relate to, and that I tried to pull in my moon and my star cards was the idea of looking out into the night sky and pondering things, and
Mm-hmm.
so I like that it relates to this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have always, up until I studied this card this particular time, immediately associated this card with planning.
Mm.
And so the slow tarot immediately speaks to me about that. She's actually planning,
Yes.
working on a map of the land, how things will be laid out, which I thought was really interesting.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I love how the landscape, it shows, like, the mountainous, like, treacherous territory that you would the challenging times that you're going to have to face, but then there's a smoother, lush land where the abundance is too, so I like the symbolism of that as well.
The next three cards that I have are cards that I have a little bit of an issue with. And those are, oh, and now I'm thinking I've lost a card. Okay. And the first one is the Mystic Garbage Tarot. And you'll see the stars there and the cricket. And she associates this with Jiminy Cricket, which, and I couldn't really figure out myself until I got the second edition of her deck at StarCon, what she meant, because the first edition, which was a Kickstarter, didn't have a little white guidebook. There was nothing except for the cards. They came plastic wrapped, and that was it.
Mm.
But she subsequently republished it with a box and a guidebook, and so I was glad to finally have it and be able to look at some of those. But she associates it with Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio. And she says, the consciousness of the little puppet to help guide his way after wishing upon a star. So this card represents future planning and progress and decisions you make along the way. And so I guess in her mind, the conscience plays a big part in that planning and that progress. But it seems a kind of a stretch for me.
Mhm. That's a little bit different take. It's interesting to hear the different thoughts. Mhm.
The other one that really kind of bugged me is this one, which is from the Heart and Hands. And I loved this. I love this deck, except for the size,
Mm.
and this one card. And this card is kind of disturbing to me because I don't really care for snakes. And it's kind of like the head is the hand of the snake. But you can also see there's a path there in the background. And then
Mhm.
there's these two crossed branches, which this is reminiscent of the Marseille and the Thoth, which we'll talk about later in the broadcast. But when I looked at her words for it, I realized that there's kind of a disparity in what people view um, this particular card as. And I guess it depends on what background they come from, whether it's Thoth or RWS or but she says that it's obstacles, anxiety, fear of loss, insecurity. So basically, it's everything that's negative, right? And she does include possible journey or waiting period, preparation for change, but it seems like it's more of it's it's different than even the thought, which is called dominion, which is the idea of that um, rulership of things around you or control of your own domain that we do see in this card. I mean, they're obviously in a secure place, like you mentioned earlier with the girl in the house,
Mhm.
but they're longing for something more. I think that's part of what's missing from the thought.
Mhm.
Um, since we're talking about that disparity, I want to read what Waite said because
Yeah.
he and I think what happens is people try to narrow the card down, right? And they want to pigeonhole it into an idea, a single concept. And so that's what we see in cards. Like the slow tarot is all about planning. It's obvious that's what they're wanting to talk about. But he says between the alternative readings, there is no marriage possible, which he's actually said about several cards that we've studied. On the one hand, it's about riches, fortune, manifestation. On the other, it's about physical suffering, disease, sadness, and mortification.
Mm.
So basically, the idea here is that this person is wealthy, but it's produced this kind of illness to them, whether it's physical illness because now they've overindulged, or if it is being um, dissatisfied, right? Because this is fire. This is um, that energy that wants to consume everything. So it's not enough just to have what you have. And so many people relate this to Alexander the Great and how he looked at the world and all of its riches. And I mean, he had everything known, right? And
Yes.
he wasn't happy. He wanted more. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the feeling that is in this card. But I feel like most cards go one of two ways. Either they're in that planning and excitement phase, that reward side, or they're
Mm-hmm.
on that side of dissatisfied, being
Mm-hmm.
dissatisfied and wanting more, um, as it were. Did you have any other cards that you wanted to share with us?
Sure. And just to touch back on that dissatisfaction, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever really looked at it like that. And but I know with the Two of Wands, depending, of course, the context of the reading is with any card, but I also view it as having the courage and the self-confidence and a safe place to finally begin that expression of what you want to do. Because um, I've been reading for people lately, and I feel like that when that card comes up, it's very much that, like, you have this idea and you want to express yourself in a certain way, but in certain communities, it's not safe to do that. And so I feel like there's a little bit of that, but like you said, it depends, and you can it depends on the context of where you're going with it. But this one is from the Muse Tarot, and you can see here that this person is stepping through this portal, and I'll just read just a little bit of this because I think it's cool. So seeking new paths, So the two of inspiration, she sees her desires on the horizon. And she begins to manifest the arrival of this opportunity by activating it in her heart and in her thoughts. She still has her one foot rooted in her old life, yet she's taking the first step by peeking her head out and opening up to the possibilities of this exciting new path. Sometimes it feels destined, sometimes it feels wild. And on occasion, like today, she realizes that all the thinking and dreaming will never replace the doing. And I think that's an important thing too, because a lot of times, a lot of us, I know myself included, that we can have all of these ideas, the sparks of this imagination and inspiration, but until you actually do something about it and put it into motion, are you really even doing the planet? Are you really even doing the work? So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, yeah, and then this is from the Alice Tarot from Baba Studios. You can see Alice is stepping through that portal into this new world, and the little guidebook says Alice finally is getting into the Wonderland. Under Wonderland Garden. An opportunity beckons, but can you make it happen? Seeing clearly where you want to go, new possibilities opening up, longing to get to a better place, and dreaming about where you really want to be. So if everybody's familiar with that story, I'm sure most people are. Yeah, and I just had a couple more that I thought were unique. And this is from the Tarot of the Haunted House. You can see this person with the Ouija board looking out across the water there. And this one says, the spirit board tells all. The spark evolves into duality. What is your destiny? How will you turn intention into action? And what do you see through the windows of your eyes? Passion, planning, ambition, and duality. And then the last one that I brought to show, I tried to have a variety of different artwork. This is from the Playful Heart Tarot by Kitten Shops. You see this playful looking character here. It says, yeah, you have set the bonfire ablaze. That's pretty cool. You are brave and forging ahead, risk taker you are. Now what? Keep going. Find some practical, creative focus for all the things. So those
You
were the
had
ones I had.
mentioned you had mentioned a moment ago about being your true self or
Mm-hmm.
something to that effect. And that was actually one of the things that she associated with this card in the Salsa. Here's that image, which I kind of love this image. It for several different reasons. It is simple. And while it is actually a protection rune, I forget what it's called. It also gives you that idea of direction, which is
Mm-hmm.
what many people associate with this card. But she actually says the key words are confidence and being true to yourself.
Okay.
And so, which is something I hadn't really considered. But I suppose that would be accurate in that we are not happy with where we are. We want to be different. We want to be
Mm-hmm.
better. We want to change things. I also love this image, which was about choosing which direction to move forward. You're looking out at the world, and there are many, many options as to how you might go, and expand your knowledge, your experience, your creativity, whatever it might be.
I love that. I love that depiction of all the doors. That's spot on for this card for me.
So there were two interesting things that I wanted to point out from my reading. One is from this book, which I love everything about this book, except for the fact that some cards it has a paragraph about and some it has 3 or 4 pages about. I wish it was more consistent, but this is the Secrets of the Waitsmith Tarot by Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin. And they draw on like what they know about Pixie and about Wait in the reading. And one of the things that they talked about is, what Pixie might have been thinking when she was creating it. And they talked about her love of Edward Burns Jones, which was a pre-Raphaelite artist. And that this picture kind of resembles a painting that he did. And I'm trying to find it. But it's basically a painting about someone who is waiting expectantly for the return of a loved one. And so the idea here is, for your safe return, I would give the whole world, for without you, I am nothing. So basically offering the globe up, which kind of gives us a whole new perspective. Like it does point to that longing that we see in this card. But the idea that they are missing something or someone and they're willing to give up everything for it kind of puts a different spin on it.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard that before. Love it.
And I don't know about you, but I have always, when I first started studying the tarot, struggled to understand the difference between the 2 and the 3 of Wands, right? Because they are, they look so similar when you look at them in the images. And I liked how Benabel summarized it in hers. And there's the image of that. Also, 3 wands looking out upon the water. The difference being, which kind of I understand now after having studied the tarot for 15 years, and from this sentence in her book, is the ships. So, so basically the 2 of Wands is indicative of innovation or artistic or scientific success, while we get the 3 is about commercial success. So basically your ship is coming in versus you're waiting on your success to your success is actually arriving. And so I liked that little snippet from her book. It kind of really helped me to understand those 2 cards as I struggled with it for a long time.
Oh, I did too. Absolutely. Because like you said, it's really, when you look at just the actual depictions, you're like, okay, what is different here? But when you look at like you said, the ships coming in, and I now understand it to mean that the 2 is more of the planning phase, and like you have these ideas, and the 3 is more of it finally beginning to set into action, to set sail, if you will. So yeah, it took me a while to get that one too. I'm thinking, like, what is going on here?
So let's talk a little bit about the image. This is the coloring that I did this week for it. And so you'll see I did all the robes red. I felt like this card needed as much red as possible because it's associated with Mars and Aries.
Yes.
So Mars and Aries is actually like the beginning of everything. Like Aries is the beginning of the year astrologically, and Mars is where it's happiness. So like Mars is happy in Aries and Aries is happy in Mars. And so there is like this really strong fire energy, this real dominant and active energy here. And so in that way, there's a lot of correlation between this card and our emperor, right, who is Aries in our major arcana. And so I felt like that there had to be a lot of red. The other things that are important, one of the things you mentioned, which I didn't include in my card, and now I'm like, maybe I'll go back and put it in there, is you kept talking about the mountains. Obviously, mountains being representative of that prosperity or that dominion, that um, earth that we are in control of there. It's not something I think about a lot when I see this card. I tend to think more
Mhm.
about the longing aspect of the card and that globe. And maybe that's because of where I am personally, right? Uh,
Mhm.
but the globe representing the idea that they have everything, right? That
Yes,
they need, that
the
they desire.
potential. Mhm.
But one of the things we don't hear people talk about a lot of times is this rose and lilies here, which
Yes.
Wade points out is extremely important. And in her deck, Benabel also um, made the point that of the importance of the rose and lilies. The rose and lilies basically reminding us that this is a card about the spiritual, okay, as not just the material. So
Mhm.
our we actually have the protection of and the benefit of the universe on our side in this card. And that's why it's called dominion, because we are in control.
Yes.
Whether we are satisfied or not with what we have, we are in control. And so she created it as this what she calls a vajra, the cross. With the rose and lilies. And then up here, she actually put a protection cross, which I don't know. Let me just make myself big real quick. If you guys notice anything similar here to my channel, but so this protection cross actually resembles different symbols for the four elements, which way before I saw this, I created my logo, which you'll see there in the corner of your video, as well as on my page. And so, even before I started studying the Thoth and this rosy cross on the back, I had created that rose cross design based on my study of the tarot. And so, seeing it in
Wow.
this deck like this, and the way that she focused on that mystic rose and various things made me connect with this deck almost instantly. And so, this deck was very important to me for a long time. Um,
Wow. Must have
and
took
that
your breath away. Like, what?
and so that
Wow. What a s
cross actually is something that I decided had to be in the Two of Wands because
Mhm.
it represents not just the protection of the universe and the divine, but that's present, but the fact that you're supported by the universe or the divine in your endeavors here. Um, And so I tried to emulate that by putting in my little logo as the cross in the card when I did it. Um, when we're talking about symbols, oh, the other thing, of course, being the wall, because they are actually secure. Um, and I think that's the important thing is that you have security, but you're just not quite feeling like you have everything that you want. And I feel like that's kind of where I have been lately because I wrote the article, which will be in the summer edition of the um, Cartomancer
Yes.
in June, and then I felt like I need something else to work on, right? I like I I've done a thing, now I need to do another thing, uh,
Yeah.
kind of energy
Congratulations,
going
by the way.
on.
That's exciting. That's really
Thank
exciting that you're gonna be in the Cartomancer. I'm
yes,
very
I'm
happy
excited.
for you.
I
I just wanna
thank
go
you.
back to the roses and the lilies if I could just for a minute, because when I
Sure.
was doing and we're talking about this little or where am I? This symbol right here. Um, Roses equal passion, lilies equal purity, and the cross equals faith. And the way that it's shaped, they were talking about St. Andrew's cross that also shows up in the Six of Cups, not in the way that is depicted with the flowers, but you can definitely see here that that shows up in the Six of Cups. Um, so I just thought that that was interesting, and I haven't really looked too much further into the Six of Cups aspect of it, but with the passion, the purity, and the faith, and then to go on with to go with what you said too, that that you also have spirit on your side or in the mix of what is taking place here.
Right, absolutely. We have some good conversation going on between Amy, who finally made it. I made my countdown longer for you, Amy.
Oh,
Um, um,
hey, Amy.
busy life of a teacher and mom, right? Um, and of course, is it Hannah? Is it Hannah? Dancing Soul Sister. I
Yes,
apologize. I'm going to
Hannah.
remember eventually.
That's nice.
I think that they need to be on my channel at some point because they keep having the most amazing insights
Aw,
in our little conversations here. But
they're wonderful.
yes. So let's see. So we talked a bit about the Mars and Aries aspect. This card on the Tree of Life, which I like to talk about sometimes, is on Chakma, which is our
Mm.
second sphere that emanates in the Tree of Life. And this is that conceptual space. It's called wisdom. So this is basically where the ideas are born before they are
Mm.
created in Bana, where we get that creative energy. And so here in the twos we have concepts developing, and so when that person is standing there and thinking, there's something is growing in their mind.
Mhm.
They must be, they're dissatisfied about something, so they're figuring out how they're going to make it happen in the future. And um, and that's an idea that some people take to the next conclusion, which is they need help, which is why in the three, there's the ships coming in. It's not
Mhm.
just them, but it's the other people that they are interacting with that cause things to happen. And so there's this longing for another person, perhaps, to bring in new energy, since this is our
Mhm.
fire suit.
Absolutely, and the dissatisfaction piece too, I really do feel, the like, a discomfort as well of, like, uh, discomfort that staying in your comfort zone can bring. Like, I'm sure we've all felt that stir within of, like, "I know I should be doing this thing," or, "I know I should be taking the leap, but, oh, what if I fail? What if blah, blah, blah?" The whole record that plays in our minds. And so I very much get that too from this card with like him holding on to, or I shouldn't say him, this person holding on to the staff, thinking like, oh gosh, am I ready to do this? And in the confines of that comfort zone and not quite taking that step yet. Oh,
Oh,
Tangi's here.
Angie is here.
Hey, Tangi.
Hi. So we have been talking about the Two of Wands and showing some of our favorite cards, and the symbols in there. Some keywords that come up that we haven't talked about much yet. We did mention planning, which is that idea of if you're dissatisfied, then you're looking forward to the next thing or working on that next thing that we just talked about. Waiting on our ship to come in, so to speak, in the three. There is accomplishment represented here, as indicated by the fact they're securely behind a wall. And it can be about personal power, as we saw in the Salsa Tarot. She talked about this being your true self, or
Mhm.
desiring to be yourself, best self. Um, and so, and that kind of, that kind of speaks to me. It can be about ambition, because that being
Mhm.
dissatisfied, you want more, you want more. Again, security or aspirations related to things we've already talked about. Well, let's talk a little bit about what the reverse side of that is. Like, what's the shadow side? Like, what is the
Mhm.
not positive outlook of this card? Um, Restlessness, that being dissattached, just
Yes.
being dissatisfied and not doing anything about it, really.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
lack of a plan. Um, and then there's, and perhaps impatience. When will the ship come in? When will the ship come in? I want my ship now.
Exactly.
I can
Exactly.
totally
Or
relate to that at the moment.
oh gosh. Or perhaps like making, like we were saying before, making a decision too soon before doing the proper planning. And then you
Sure.
just sort of jump into something when you should have waited. And so, yeah, it is about that discernment. It is about the planning. But sometimes we do have to sit in that discomfort a little bit as much as we don't want to. And I, I know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and we have to do our homework, as
Yeah.
Hannah's talking about here, if we're going to actually make progress.
Hmm.
The alternative view of this is that it could be telling us to get moving. You know,
Yes, yes.
it's time to actually act,
That's
because
right.
this is Mars and Aries energy. We need to get moving. We don't need to be satisfied with where we are. That it's rather than saying, you know, you are dissatisfied. No, you're not going to be satisfied. You're just going to act. And
Mhm.
also an idea that comes up a lot from people is that there's a surprise coming your way,
Mm,
right? I mean,
yep,
the ship is on the horizon, right? You're about to see the ship rise and come your way.
that's
That's
right.
another idea.
Yes.
The Tarot de Marseille actually equates this with working with others. So, with
Mm,
the idea of collaboration, which seemed a little odd to me. I guess the reason being is that there's no longer one wand, but there's two wands. So now we're cooperating with someone else, um,
mm.
in the reading of the Tarot de Marseille, which is an idea that you can get when you think about being dissatisfied. You know, you do need perhaps ideas from someone else, which is why I started the series, right?
Yes.
And why I am constantly updating my cards based on things that people are saying, um, in uh, in these videos.
Mhm.
So
And with the Roman numeral 2, so with the 2 wands side by side and with the Roman numeral 2, they're both like portals that you can step through as well, right? I was reading that somewhere. I have these in my head, but I don't know where, of course, of all my
sure.
years I've been reading about or studying. But yeah, like a portal that you can step through, that you're about to step through as well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I like the idea of portals. And since we're talking about portals, let's take a look at the card I created. I decided to use a window as the portal, so to speak. This is one of those cards where I did not have a specific idea going into it, as to a situation it related to in my life, like with some of my cards. And so I obviously immediately decided to draw on imagery that I enjoyed in decks, like in this case, the RWS. Now, in some other cards, I've drawn on the Thoth or
Hmm.
even on the Spirit Keeper's Tarot for ideas and concepts that I wanted to include when I didn't have a life experience to share, right? And so I decided there had to be a lot of red, right? Because I talked about this earlier about that Mars and Aries energy. Um, and I wanted to make that prominent. But as I did that, I thought, huh, all of these colors have the same tone. There's no contrast.
Mm,
And then I realized, oh, well, wait, you know, I can relate this to my other wands. And all of the wands that are depictions of the indoors have the same red wallpaper background. This is in the Queen as well as in the Nine, I believe it is, that we did. Um, and so I switched it up and I made the person black, like I have done the other silhouettes in most of the cards, though not all. And and then drew on that yellow sky that I've been using in the wands.
hmm.
I don't know why that yellow appeals to me. I guess it's the idea that um, of the sun shining, you know, because this is a fire energy, giving off that kind of yellow glow. And so I definitely wanted the water, the horizon there, you know, that we see in this card so many times.
Hmm.
And and so I included the globe. You know, I wanted to make it clear that they have everything. I mean, not everyone has a beautiful study with a globe and all of that. I wanted to make it look like it was well decorated to some degree, so it was obvious that they were safe and secure behind the wall. They had everything they need.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't like how my um, title features and symbols landed in the window. And so I worked on it some more. There was another thing I didn't put in here, which I've talked about a bit, that what I thought was very important, and that was, uh, and so here you'll see I made the window shorter. So I don't know which is better. I actually like this better. This feels kind of busy to me. It
Mm,
feels like the symbols are part of the card image rather than on the card image.
right.
Um, and I I decided to go with 2 candles versus 2 wands for this particular image. But I still felt like this image, something was missing when I got done. And so I thought about it a little while, and I went back and I looked at my favorite cards, which are that discerning one from the Spirit Keepers Tarot that I showed earlier, and realized that I didn't have my protection of spirit or the presence of spirit that I wanted there, that protection cross or cross of the divine presence. And so I went back and I added that to it. And so I basically went with, imagery that we were all familiar with, but incorporated, symbols and things from other cards that I had created in the deck when I mocked up my card. But after talking to you, I feel like I need to get back and I need to put some mountains in that horizon there.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that's important for you. I'm wondering if that's important for other people as well. There's sometimes imagery in cards that speak to us specifically, and we forget about the other imagery that's important. And that might be the case with this one. Let's see.
Yeah, I really like what you've done with this card. I like the shorter window, and I really do like the symbol on the back of that person as well.
Decision. Okay. So one of the things that I've talked about throughout today is how I can be constructively dissatisfied, particularly with my art. And I am going to have a chance to talk to you about that on Tuesday.
Yes.
What other exciting things do you have going on with your channel?
Yeah. So, yes, Rosemary will be joining me on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I'm really looking forward to that, to not only hear, of course, about the deck creation like we've been talking about, but about her artwork and her journey with all that creativity. And then on the Friday of this week, I will have Shaniqua from What Shanique Was Into. You can look her up on Instagram. She's creating a deck called that Afro Drip Tarot, and it's an all black deck and really awesome style. She's also the digital artist, right, using digital art. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to having her, and she'll be on at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as well. I have a couple of others that are scheduled for the following week, and I'll announce those at a later time just because I'm just finishing up some details of scheduling them in. But other than that, I will be probably taking a break from the Creating Connection series in June so that I can start to focus more on the content that I've been wanting and creating behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Great. And I'm looking forward to Tuesday. I've been trying to collect as much of my artwork as I can, and thinking about creativity and what I want to share. I want to welcome everyone coming here at the end as we begin to pull our card for the next week. Perhaps one of you would like to join me and talk about that card and share some of your favorites. Next week, I will be doing 78 cards in 78 weeks. The following week, I will actually be teaching a class at a convention, so we won't have 78 cards in 78 weeks. So my question for all of you who are my loyal followers who are here every Sunday, should we do it that following Sunday on Mother's Day, or should we skip Mother's Day? I mean, I'll be here and I won't have anything to do, so I can record it either way, but I kind of want to know your preference so I know if I can expect anybody to be around with me. So let me know in the comments your thoughts. And next week we will be, oh no.
Uh-oh.
So earlier I was thinking to myself, I would let this card decide if I was going to do one next week, because next week I kind of had planned to focus on my class because I haven't studied for it at all since I did it last year. And I wanted to expand it and improve upon it. And so I thought I might not do it next week, but then I thought, well, if I don't do it next week, I definitely can't do it the next one because I'll be out of town. And then maybe I won't do Mother's Day. That will be 3 weeks. And I was like, but you know what? If I get this card, I'll want more time because I have no clue where it's going to go when I create it. And of course, here it is. the Magician. So,
Oh,
yeah, so that's one of those cards always just seems a bit overwhelming to me, because it is a big
yes.
one to me in the tarot, and I feel like it has to be right, and I have
R
no idea what it's going to look like or where it's going to come from, or if I'm just going to end up finding images to copy this, as I have done with some cards,
mhm.
where I have no idea where to go. But I feel like this is a big one and need to spend lots of time on it. But I will do it next week, just as
It's
we had
exciting.
intended. So if there's
Yeah.
anybody who wants to talk about the Magician next week, please
Mhm.
do let me know, in the chat, or touch base with me anytime on my various methods. Here is my link tree. If you have not already seen it before, there's all the different options for reaching me: my website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as a new channel I started, and I haven't done many videos with it yet. It's called GJT After Dark, which is where I'll be sharing decks and thoughts on things related to sex and kink and tarot, which is actually the class I'm teaching next week. I
Oh,
may record it, as one of the videos for that channel. I have several decks that are coming that are strongly related to sex, kink, and that type of thing. And so I want to put them on a separate channel. I like to keep this channel PG-13.
yeah.
And those decks, which I'll be sharing, have more nudity than most normal decks. So do hop over there if you'd like and check that out in the coming
Cool.
weeks as it grows.
Yeah.
It will be sporadic. As we go. So again, I want to thank Ange for being here with us, talk about the Two of Wands. It's been great. In a
Yes.
way, it's for some reason I associate this Two of Wands a little bit with the Magician that's coming up next week. Because it is about putting ourselves out there, right, and
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
manifesting things, and not being satisfied with where we are. And
And that's
so,
funny, at one point I said, right, like, in this live of, like, "As above, so below," and I said, "Well, not that this is the Magician card," and then you pulled the Magician card, I was like, "What? Okay."
all right. Well, thank you so much again
Oh,
for being here,
thank
everyone.
you.
Until next time we meet, good journeys.
Bye.